Good morning, and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butchchester. You know what I'd like to do on my show. I want to enlighten, inspire, empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today, we want to get you fired up about running. I have an athlete on today, and his name is Earl Fee. We're talking about his autobiographical book, Earl Fee Is Running. Let me tell you a little bit more about Earl. He is a retired nuclear power consultant, an author, a poet, a motivational speaker, artist, and also a world-class runner and hurdler with 60 world records from age 57 to 90. The world records indicate the correctness of his healthy lifestyle. Now, in 2005 and 2020, he was recognized by the World Masters Athletics as the overall male master athlete of the world. He has had 5 books published: How to Be a Champion from 9 to 90, The Complete Guide to Running, 100 Years Young, The Natural Way, and The Wonder of It All, 120 of his first poems. And Earl Fee Is Running, an autobiographical book published in 2019. His poetry book, Living with Spirit, was published in the early 2020s. Now, he is still going strong at age 91, with a biological age of about 15 to 20 years younger than his birth age, which adds further credibility to the anti-aging methods in his anti-aging book. Now, go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Good morning, Earl, and I am so glad that you are here with me today. So let's go on and jump right in. I can't wait to ask you the following questions about your book. So first, I would love to know, what were some of the highlights in the past 33 years in running and hurdling, resulting in 60 World Masters records and 2-time male World Master Athlete of the Year in 2005 and 2020? What was that like?
In the past 34 years, from age 57 to 90, I have run over 700 races. This represents about 20 medals and trophies per year in events: 300-meter hurdles, 400 meters, 800 meters, 1,500 meters, and a mile. I have completed in 18 World Masters Championships around the world. For example, Japan, Australia, South Africa, Europe, United States, etc. And I have usually won 2 or more, mostly gold medals at each of these championships. And so I'm convinced that this activity will lead me to a higher quality, much longer life. So, okay, now the highlights. After no running for 33 years at age 57 and just 6 months of training, I tied the world indoor record in the indoor 400 meters in the 55 to 59 age group. I thought this is a good, healthy habit. Then in my early 60s, I broke a few world records with daily intense training. But at a World Outdoor Master Championship in Buffalo in 1995, at age 66, I was able to break 3 world records in my age group, 65 to 69, in the 400 meters, 800 meters, and 300-meter hurdles. At this meet in Buffalo, I hit against a very heavy wind. It was actually roaring in the 800 meters. but nevertheless, it was a world record. And as a matter of interest, that buffalo was tested 3 times for enhancing drugs, but I have never used drugs. Then another highlight is in 1993 at the World's Masters in Miyazaki, Japan. This was the world's largest Masters Championship with over 12,000 competitors and $12 million spent on this championship. I was honored to carry the Canadian flag at this meet. Then in 2005, at a World Championship in Spain, San Sebastian, I was honored to be selected as the male master of the world. This was influenced by my 4 world records in the previous year and 2 world records at this meet in Spain, where I also won 3 gold medals. Then in 2019, last year, I was honored to be selected by the World Masters Athletics as the male master athlete of the world for 2019. This was based mainly on my 4 world records indoor and outdoor in the 400 meters and 800 meters. As a matter of interest, I broke the old indoor record in the 400 by 16 seconds, and the 800, the old record, by 33 seconds. As a matter of interest, usually these records are broken by 1 or 2 seconds, so I had broken them by a hefty margin. Most records are broken when an athlete arrives in a new age group. My next age group is 95 to 99, and I hope to be active and competitive at this time in 4 years. Finally, in my running career, I have received many awards, Hall of Fame, etc. But the greatest award was to be called the Great Earl in Canada and the United States for several decades.
How did you get started in running and hurdling?
I was very active as a youngster. And on the farm in Saskatchewan, I was often chasing the roosters around the farm at age 6 to 7. In Toronto, after age 8, I was often cycling for miles around Toronto, which is a huge city. And as a youngster, I had a great interest in hurdling and would often practice on one hurdle. At high school and university, I competed in running events like hurdling and winning relay teams. In my early 50s, I started training my young boys. They were around 9 and 10. And we would go to these training camps together, like in Florida, etc. Now, when they stopped running, I continued on. So that's really how I got started. And after running for 33 years, at age 57 and 6 months of training, I tied the existing indoor record for age group 55 to 59 in the 400 meters. I was convinced that this was a great hobby.
What are some of your training secrets?
Oh, these are some of my training secrets as follows. aging slower than my rivals by a healthy and more organized, active life, doing the right things and avoiding the bad things by good, healthy habits. And number 2, building a good aerobic base for endurance. I did this by starting with training with the marathon runners twice a week for a couple of decades. Number 3, to develop speed and endurance at the same time, I do high-intensity interval training several times a week. And number 4, in between the above running training, which I do 3 times a week, I swim and run in the water 3 times a week in a pool. Number 5, I've always trained with male athletes about 20 years younger. Number 6, in the past I have usually done weight training twice a week. Number 7, I have usually a goal, a dream to break a record and work towards that dream. It's constantly on my mind. Number 8, I keep a daily training log. This helps to determine what kind of training is good and what is bad. So I have about 34 of these training logs from the past. Number 9, I make myself knowledgeable so I do not need to have a coach. And number 10, I have a morning routine, an evening routine before bed for stretching and some additional weight training. And number 11, I have a good diet of plenty of vegetables, and I have in my diet I have minimum sugar, and I have minimum saturated fats and processed foods. That would be the extent of my training secrets that I can reveal at the present.
Since aging slower than your competitive rivals is one of your main training secrets, what are the important or essential activities that one must do on a regular basis in order to live a long and active life?
My secrets to longevity, mainly these secrets were developed in writing my book, my anti-aging book, which is titled 100 Years Young, The Natural Way. So below is a short list, which I have mainly come from my book. Number 1, exercise is number 1. The experts recommend about 150 minutes of moderate weekly training, at least, or 75 minutes per week of vigorous training. Another secret is the diet is of next importance to exercise. At least we need at least 6 servings of vegetables and fruit daily, with about 15% of total calories in protein. And the vegetable protein is preferable to the meat protein. But if I have meat protein, then it's usually salmon or chicken. Another secret is for meeting fiber in the diet, which is very important. We need about 35 grams per day, everybody. And this fiber mainly comes from beans and legumes and leafy green vegetables. Another secret is avoid saturated fats and avoid processed foods. That means anything in a box. And it's very important to get 8 glasses of water daily. And walking only is not sufficient. You need to stretch daily with at least 10 minutes per day of stretching. And I would recommend also like a yoga session once a week. And to compensate for the loss of fast fiber muscle, weight training is recommended, and it's very important. And also, weight training reduces the bone loss, which occurs about 1% per year. And also, frequent mental training is necessary to help prevent dementia and shorter life. For example, learn a language. At the present time, I'm learning French again. And it's all coming back to me. Also, I reduce sugar since it causes inflammation and starts many diseases. So you need to have about less than 5% calories in your diet every day. And as you know, sleep is very important. You need at least 7 hours a day. 5 hours a day would be not a good idea. And the main effect of inadequate sleep is more rapid aging and a lowered immune system. And also, like, to live longer, it's very important to be sociable. You shouldn't live as a hermit. Also, posture is very important. Don't slouch while you're walking. It requires a constant attention. And also, if you're over 65, you need to do some balance exercises. And it's important to avoid stress. Stress will age you. So it's very important to have a positive attitude. Now, with the above incorporated in your everyday routine, then your real age will be much less than your birthday age. In my case, my real age is about 15 years younger than my birthday age. Well, for example, when I was in my late 60s, a track coach in the United States took a photo of me while I was running and covered up my head, and he showed this photo to his young athletes and asked them to guess my age. And although I was over 65 at the time, on the average guess from this picture with my head covered that I was in my late 20s. So this kind of confirms that people believe that I look much younger than my age.
Do you feel that your upbringing, your early childhood, helped develop your character as well as contribute to your ultimate success in any way?
The following events resulted in character development, which contributed to my ultimate success. Number one, when I was young, I experienced the harsh winters in Saskatchewan up to age 8. I believe this had a good effect on developing my character. And during public school in Toronto, our family was in a poverty mood, and so it was necessary. We and my brothers, we had to wear the city-supplied clothing, which was very embarrassing, and it required constant fighting and adverse comments. Also, it was a tough neighborhood in Toronto, and there was frequent bullying, which hardened me somewhat. And also the family poverty necessitated many part-time jobs. However, I think this helped to develop my character. And like for instance, when I was young, my family, to get more money, my brothers and I would go out selling donuts, and this I think had a character developing effect. And I learned that although the family didn't have much money, I made up for it with part-time jobs, and I think that this hard work paid off dividends. That's the about all I can say about character development.
What were your activities besides running in the past as well as in the present?
I have enjoyed the following extracurricular activities. One was water skiing. Another is snow skiing. It seems like anything that I was doing with my legs, I would be successful at. Another activity was the Toastmasters speaking club. They're famous in the United States and Canada. And I gave many speeches to retirees, and at work I used to roast people when they retired. Also, I used to write newsletters on health. I had about 100 followers. That was when I was in my 30s. And I enjoyed the curling. Curling is very popular in Canada. And hiking. I have some friends. We'd hike together for 3 hours or more. It's very good for developing endurance as well. And in the last few years, I've really enjoyed the karaoke, singing, and this is very good for the voice, and it's good for the morale. And of course, I've written 6 books now. So that's the end of that's the extent of my curricular activities. Apart from running was my main.
Now, you
activity.
have had an interesting occupation as a pioneer engineer in the Canadian nuclear power industry. Can you tell us about those days?
After graduating as a mechanical engineer, I won a scholarship, an Earl of Athlone scholarship for two free years of university tuition in England, with all expenses paid by the English government. Instead of the university study, I was offered training in a new field, nuclear power, at the Harwell Research Facility near Oxford, England. And I was fortunate to study nuclear power with a small team of industrial engineers. Nuclear power was a modern method to harness the power of the nuclear fission in the atom and turn this heat into electricity. I was fortunate, and I gained 2 years experience in this new field at the Harwell Nuclear Facility. I was enjoying life in England, and I had got used to the damp weather, so I decided to stay an extra year and work in the nuclear power at the English Electric Company. Now, after escaping marriage in England, I returned to Canada after 3 years and took employment as an engineer with the Atomic Energy of Canada in the nuclear power plant division. And since there was only half a dozen of engineers in this field in Canada at this time, that in 1958, that made me a pioneer in this nuclear industry. After 6 years, the six of us grew to about 34 engineers and draftsmen and technicians, and eventually to about 500 in our can-do company. But also, there were thousands in the industry at this time, 6 years after I started. Thousands in Canada working in various industries associated with nuclear power. In the beginning, I was the youngest in the company, but when I retired after 34 years, I was probably the oldest. The can-do team in the past has sold 32 nuclear power reactor plants around the world. And the can-do reactor has reliably supplies electricity power in Canada now for many years. Actually, it's been active for 40 years. And in Ontario, which is the largest province in Canada, nuclear power supplies 40% of all electricity power. And so nuclear power reduces the need for coal and gas pollution, and it greatly helps to reduce the problems with the pollution in the air. So that's the extent of my training in nuclear power.
Now, you participated in a study at McGill University, Canada, at the age of 83 back in 2012, comparing world record hurdler athletes above the age of 75 to active but non-athletes. Compared to yourself, what were some of the major findings?
Okay, at age 80, I was 83 at the time in 2012, and when I participated in this McGill Montreal Masters study of track and field athletes, and which was compared to non-athletic athletes, and okay, so this is some of the major findings which I would summarize for you. In regard to body fat, my body fat was about 15% compared to about 32% for the non-athletes. Now, in regard to the cardiovascular, like the lungs, the average daily minutes of exercise, for me, I would exercise about 36 minutes, but the average non-athlete is about 6 minutes of exercise a day. And when they examined the peak work rate, I was about double those of the non-athletes. And in regard to lung capacity, I was 70% higher than non-athletes. And in regard to the peak rate of oxygen use, I was 60% higher than the non-athletes. And my resting heart rate was 43 beats per minute compared to about 68 for the non-athletes. In regard to strength, my leg strength was 60% higher than the non-athletes. And in regard to the size of muscles, I was 40% bigger muscles than the non-athletes. They tested some functional tasks, like, for instance, standing on one foot and keeping balance. I could do this for 60 seconds on one foot without losing balance, but the non-athletes could only last about 8 seconds. And there was a test about sitting on a chair and then standing on a chair, like 10 times. And I could do the sit and stand 10 times in 12 seconds, whereas the non-athletes took nearly 30 seconds. And my walking speed is 50% higher than the non-athletes. Now, they took some sample from my muscles, and they found that the energy production per gram of muscle, I was about double those of the non-athletes. And in regard to bone density, my bone density was equivalent to a 30-year-old, which was good because I was 83 at the time. Now, in many cases, the benefits of a healthy lifestyle diminish each year with age. For example, the bone density diminishes, the cardio function diminishes, the muscle strength diminishes, balance diminishes, you're less flexible, stride length shortens. So, to prevent all these things from happening, it pays to keep active and reduce the decline. And the results above show that an active, healthy lifestyle for decades can prevent this aging and deterioration to a large extent. So that is the extent of my study in Montreal.
You have a chapter in Earl Fee Is Running on 4 of your friends, also legendary world record-holding athletes. What were some of their achievements and lifestyles?
I have a legendary friend, John Ragg. He's age 70 now, and he's a wonder man, Canadian, who has in 2020 has completed 260 Ironman races in the past 32 years, since 2008. No one in the world has accomplished this amazing feat. You may not know the details of an Ironman race, but it's like an impossibility, since it involves first. It's a total of 226 kilometers. And firstly, you have to swim 3.8 kilometers. Immediately after, you have to cycle 180 kilometers. And then immediately after, you run a marathon, 42.2 kilometers. Now, 206. My friend John Ragg has run 260 Ironman races, not counting the training. This is nearly 55,000 kilometers compared to it's 40,000 kilometers around the world. So it's really amazing what the human body can do if it's trained. Some years, John has completed as many as 17 Ironman races in a year. This seems impossible. This means that it's a short recovery, and each race requires a superhuman endurance and boundless mental capacity and energy. But John says he will continue going until he can't finish the race. So I could go on about John, but I think you get the general idea. But I have also a friend, Ed Whitlock. He's also legendary. But unfortunately, John passed away at age 2006, about a few years ago. Sorry, passed away at 86, and 3 years ago, from prostate cancer. He was the first person over 70 to break 3 hours in the marathon in 2 hours and 54 minutes. At 85, he was the first person to run under 4 hours in 3 hours and 56 minutes, taking 28 minutes off the record. John was a graceful gentleman at 5'7" and 107 pounds. And he was a running legend. And he was often running in 20-year-old shoes, as a matter of interest. And so he has inspired millions around the world. He would train in a cemetery, running about 3 hours several times a week in his 70s. And he would do 4 hours a week several times, 4 hours several times a week in his 80s. It's about 5 minutes per lap in a path between the headstones. As a matter of interest, his training was very unconventional. No strength training, no cross training like swimming or cycling or rowing, just running. Unfortunately, he had no doctor visits. That was his downfall. And he had no special diet, no supplements, no coach, no training partners, and no massage. Just to mention a few of his records. In the 5 kilometers, he had 9 world records. In the half marathon, he had 11 world records. In the marathon, he had 12 world records. All these were between age 65 to 85. He had some famous quotes. I asked him one time, what do you think about during these long races? He says, I'm thinking, when will it be over? He says, as we age, we don't have to slow down as much as we think. If we keep active, we can accomplish a lot. And I also have a friend, Olga Kotelka, another legendary Canadian. Unfortunately, she died at 94, and she held 37 world records. And she had won about 750 gold medals, which is pretty amazing. She's considered one of the world's greatest female athletes. Her events were the high jump, the long jump, the shot put, the javelin, the hammer throw, the 60 meters, the 100 meters, and the 200 meters. Probably she's the world's most photographed female athlete. There's a book about her, a biography book, What Makes Olga Run. Unfortunately, she died from a brain hemorrhage at 94. She had a very positive attitude. She was religious, Catholic, and very easygoing, a positive thinker. She was the seventh of 11 children, and she was born in Bonda, Saskatchewan. As a matter of interest, I was born in the same small town in Saskatchewan. And her profession was a teacher. She competed around the world in 7 different countries. She was a super senior Canadian who had a super life. She says, don't focus on your age. Focus on how you age. So those are 3 of my legendary Canadian friends.
If you could briefly, before I let you go, can you describe your other 4 books and your latest book, Living with Spirit?
Okay. So I've written 6 books. I will describe them briefly. My first book was self-published. It was called How to Be a Champion from 9 to 90. I published it in 2001. After I had gathered about 5 years of information from good coaches and good articles. And each chapter had about 5 to 34 references. And there were 24 chapters. And all the book describes all a runner needs to know. In fact, if you read this book, you wouldn't need a coach. And I tried to run clearly. To write clearly, concisely, comprehensively. And I printed 2,500 books, costing me about $18,000. My best customer was the National Masters News. They sold about 2,300 copies. Anyway, myself and Masters News together, we sold 2,300. When I worked it all out, it took me about 2,500 hours of writing, and this worked out to about $5 per hour, considering the profit on my books, which is not a lot of money. $5 per hour of my effort. My second book was The Complete Guide to Running. It was published in 2003 by the Meyer publishers in Germany. I had attended a book fair in Frankfurt, Germany, at a cost of about $7,000 to promote my book. But I was fortunate to get the publisher there and at this fair. Every word I wrote in the book was accepted by the publisher except for one word, which was Gestapo, which I used to describe a sprint training drill, so I had to change that word. This book has been a tremendous success. I've sold, or they have, my publisher and myself have sold books in China, United States, Australia, Canada, and Europe, and Ireland, etc. And the book won a Canada Book Award in 2005. My third book was a poetry book titled The Wonder of It All. It was published in 2012. I started writing poetry after my retirement in 1992. Some say poetry is prose gone mad, or one should not go around thinking everything is pretty. My 120 poems are kind of a down-to-earth variety, easy to understand. And and some are rhyming and some are free verse. And they have been well accepted in Facebook and by my friends. And they're, the poems are in 5 categories: live, love, laugh, pathos, and spirit. And it has 65 professional photos to contribute to the feeling of the poems. There are 2 versions of the book: a book in black and white and a beautiful book in color, which is unfortunately a little expensive due to the printing. My 4th book was 100 Years Young, The Natural Way, an anti-aging book, published in 2011. It's a rather large book, 635 pages, because it's in body, mind, and spirit sections. My great interest in the subject of longevity has resulted in this book, and so it will lead to a much longer life if you read through the book. The information I gathered in 3 parts, body, mind, and spirit, has helped me to do just that. I've had many comments that I look decades younger than my 91 years. What I learned has been put to good use. I have reasoned that there could not be a more useful subject than longevity. As I mentioned previously, my main training secret is aging slower than my rivals, and the book certainly on that respect. My 5th book is a autobiography book titled Earl Fee Is Running, published in 2019. It won a Canada Book Award in 2012. It tells of my life as a world champion runner who gained international attention from my 60 World Masters records, starting at a late age of 57. The book highlights the following: valuable workouts from age 58 to 88, my 18 World Masters Championships, my quotations and spiritual reflections, for example, on gratitude, helping others, empathy, etc. My 35 pioneering years in the Canadian nuclear power industry, and a detailed description of my world legendary friends. And of course, my lifestyle and upbringing. And one of the 22 chapters speaks of legacy, gratitude, and religion. Now, my 6th latest book is called Living with Spirit, and published this year, and consists of 120 of my more recent poems, including 65 professional photos to help bring the poems to life. And the poems are divided into 5 categories: spirit, live, love, pathos, and laugh. The book stresses the spirit and spirituality in our lives. For example, living with inspired gusto, vivacity, courage, vigor, enthusiasm, and optimism, and stresses helping others and giving back with your wealth, talent, and valuable time, and the essential importance of gratitude, empathy, and love, and humility and selflessness in our lives. Many of the poems have a lesson or example of these admirable qualities. Now, finally, may you live with spirit and spirituality. and exhibit these qualities in everyday life. Then you will be truly blessed.
Well, Earl Fee, I just want to say thank you so much for spending time with us here today. I have enjoyed my time with you and learning about your amazing experiences. That is such an awesome story to be able to share with the world. Thank you so much for being on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you today.
And listeners, thank you as well. Of course, I enjoyed your being here as well. You could be anywhere, but you chose to spend your time here with us. And I thank you for that. As always, may the Lord continue to shine his face upon you. May you receive his grace and his mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.